the answer to getting beyond yourself is to hire an attorney. And we try to we think that we need more clients. We think if we spend more money on marketing, but it's not a marketing problem. It's a capacity problem in the
Yep.
firm. And we're building the business backwards. And I have this talk that I do where I talk about like how I would build a $1.5 million revenue firm in 12 months. And essentially what I map out is I would do it the other way around.
Welcome back to the Center Stage podcast. My name is Danny Decker. Have a great guest for you today, Moshe Amsel from Profit with Law. Moshe is the founder and CEO of Profit with Law. So Moshe, welcome to the Center Stage.
Thank you so much, Danny, for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of your audience, and hopefully I share a thing or two that helps somebody, and mission accomplished for the day.
Love it. Sounds like a plan. So Moshe, I want to get a little bit of your backstory because you've got a really unique and cool backstory. But before we go there, just do tell the audience, what is Profit with Law? Kind of what do you do? Let's start there, and then we're going to dive into your backstory a bit.
Sure. Started with just a typical accounting firm, but stepped into the legal and illegal industry, legal market by chance, and been supporting law firms since end of 2018, essentially, where we help law firm owners increase their revenue, grow their profit, and keep as much of it as possible in their pocket and not pay it to the government. So we've moved beyond accounting to CFO advisory services, and we also have a group coaching program to help solos grow beyond themselves. So we support law firms at every stage of growth, and ultimately we just want the owners to increase um, their money that they get to take home, and it's really for generational wealth is what we're trying to help them achieve. Not everybody's after generational wealth, but that's my calling. And it really came off of the backs of my grandfather. So I have this on my About Me page on the Profit with Law website. But essentially, my grandfather left Nazi Germany when he was 11 years old. His mom and twin siblings died in Auschwitz. His father was an orange merchant, and he was well connected with all of the authorities because he did a lot of import and export, and he was able to get them essentially a visa to exit the country and to leave, and secured a spot on a boat going from Italy. I think it went from Italy to Israel, is where is the somehow that I'm not sure exactly what the port of call was, but that was essentially the trip that was set up. His sibling contracted pneumonia the day before they were supposed to leave and ended up being hospitalized. So because they were twins and his mother stayed with the kid who was in the hospital, she kept the other twin with, and they didn't know that was the last boat that ever left the harbor there during the
Wow.
war. And so he went with his dad and never saw the rest of his family again. His father had taken whatever money he had and purchased diamonds with it and sent it to a family member in New York. When they eventually ended up in New York and Washington Heights, he started a diamond merchant business with that starting inventory that he had. Um, my grandfather took the business over. Somewhere along the way, he made some money with the business, and together with four cousins, bought an apartment building on the west side of Manhattan. Fast forward many years later, I'm a 19-year-old punk. I get married. I think I know the world. I figured it all out. So I get married at 19. I have a kid at 19. By 21, I'm in the IT industry. I'm making six figures, and I've got a second kid on the way, and I'm ready to buy a house. But I go to my mom and I'm like, "Hey, listen, I want to buy a house. I can afford a monthly payment, a mortgage, but how do you save for a down payment?" And she says, "Well, funny you should ask, but your grandfather has been turning the units in his building into co-ops, selling each one of them off, and he's earmarked that money to help all 36 of his grandchildren make the down payment on the purchase of their first home."
Wow.
And I received a gift from my grandfather, which wasn't a huge gift. I mean, whatever it was, 40 grand at the time, but it helped me to buy a home, which completely changed the financial trajectory of my life. In my 20s, I was saving for my retirement. When I got divorced, I sold the house, and the equity in the house fully funded my daughter's college funds. It really just changed everything that happened from that point forward by that one act that I received from my grandfather. So when I started to reevaluate my life during my divorce and, what am I doing? And realized that I don't want to be known for resurrecting servers in the middle of the night from ransomware. And I wanted something more meaningful. This experience I had with my grandfather really got to me and said, I said, I want to help other people do this. And I set out on a journey to help other people create generational wealth so that they can impact future generations the way that I was impacted by my grandfather. And that started, I mean, I went back to school as an adult learner, and I got my bachelor's and I got my MBA, and I sat for the CPA exams, and I started an accounting practice because I felt that the people who were best positioned to be able to set themselves up in this way are business owners. And then once I started my practice, I aligned myself with Profit First, Mike Michalowicz's brand, and through their headquarters, got introduced to a law firm in Manhattan, and the rest is history. They introduced me to four friends, and before I knew it, I was working with lawyers, and now that's really where we spend all of our time.
Love it. That is a great story, and I did see that on your website, and so I'm glad we kind of explored that. So listen, there's obviously a lot of law firm owners who want to make more money, grow their revenue. I've not heard the connection to generational wealth before. So let me just sort of ask the, I don't know, maybe this is a very simple question, but like, how do you define generational wealth? What does it mean for a law firm owner who's like, yeah, I do want to create generational wealth? Like, what does that actually tangibly mean?
What's interesting is that most law firm owners can't even think in the realm of generational wealth because they're still trying to figure out, how do I make myself wealthy, or how do I feel like I'm living the life that I thought I could live by starting my law firm. And it's interesting because a lot of firms are very far in the journey. Like on our fractional CFO side of the business, typically firms will come in and they're doing 5, 7, 10 million in revenue, and the owner is making a profit of 10% on that. And when you start looking at it, they're like, all this time you spent and all this effort that you do and all the sleepless nights you have because money doesn't come in consistently every single month. So there's all kinds of problems that business owners have. And all you have to show for it on a $5 million business is 500,000. Government takes half of it or close to half of it, and you're walking away with 250. All that work and all those people working for you, and that's what you have to show for it. And the first step in the journey is, how do we get you to get to the place where you feel like, not only have I achieved financial freedom, but also time freedom. Like when we marry those two together, that's when a business owner is like, that is the epitome of what I'm trying to create. Once somebody has those two things, then they can start thinking about, okay, what's next? What's my legacy? But until you're financially free, until you're not bogged down by the nuances of the day-to-day money in, money out, and how am I going to get to this next step, and until you have everybody else doing everything for you in the firm and you're not needed for any of it, it's very hard for you to think in terms of wealth creation and generational wealth and all of that stuff. So what we do with our clients first is we demonstrate that we help law firms get to 30 to 40% profit margin, right? So like, you don't need to be operating in this lane of 10%. A $5 million firm, that owner should be making 1.5 million in profit. And if we do things right from a tax perspective, the government doesn't get 750, right? They only get 400. And you end up, you keep 1 million plus of that, right? Like that completely changes the name of the game. You don't need to get to $20 million firm to get to do what we can help you do with a $5 million firm. And I know solos, you think listening to these numbers, you're like, wow, this is not even relevant to me, right? But we also help solos grow beyond themselves. We take firms from 250K in revenue to a million in 12 months. And
Love
people are
it.
like, no, that's impossible. No, it's very possible.
Well,
It's very easy actually.
that's okay. So that's awesome, and there's a lot to unpack there. And I do think probably a majority of the folks listening to this podcast are probably in the under 500,000 sort of revenue range, many of them wanting to grow. So, since you brought it up, okay, so what does it look like to help a law firm go from, let's say, 500,000 to 1 million in a relatively short period of time? I know that's a big question, but like, where do you start?
This is a tough conversation to have with somebody who's a marketer, because we're going to butt heads, but or maybe we won't. Maybe you agree with me, but here's the thing: every law firm owner out there, unless you started with seed money or a partner, if you started by yourself with no capital, you essentially started your firm thinking, I'm the attorney. I'm going to go get myself some clients. I'm going to serve those clients. How hard can it be? Probably with 10 clients, I can make as much as I was making at my job. And that's essentially how every law firm starts. The problem is that by doing that, we have immediately put ourselves into a place where we cannot win. And the best way everyone is familiar with Michael Gerber's E-Myth, and like there's a lot of books out there, there's a lot of speak out there, and people get the concept of like, oh, I have to work on my business. I can't be the practitioner if I want to be successful. But a Clio Legal Trends report done back in 2018 really helps to put this into perspective. Clio surveyed 2,000 law firms and solos, and they said, tell us about your billables. Tell us about your hourly billings. Tell us about your collections. Tell us about the work that you're doing. And what they found was, and this data is incredible because most solos can be like, oh yeah, I like that actually makes sense. What they found was is that the solo business owner is billing 2.4 is doing billable work of 2.4 hours per day on average. Now, it doesn't mean that every day you're doing 2.4 hours of work. Today, you might do 8 hours, or
Yep.
10 or 12, but tomorrow you might spend the entire day trying to find a client and not do any billable work, right? So 2.4 billable hours per day, of which 2.1 actually gets billed, of which 1.9 actually gets collected. And what's mind boggling and crazy to wrap our heads around is the fact that if we think about an attorney on staff, if I had somebody working for me and I wasn't a maniacal big law firm that expected them to work 12 hours a day, and I gave them an 8 hour workday and they had lunch and bathroom breaks and they could talk around the cooler and waste some time, I would expect that they're going to do 5 to 6 hours of billable work.
Yep.
Right. That's 3 times what the solo can do based on the data. Right. So if I put an attorney on my staff, they can do 3 times what I can do. So if I was able to get my firm by myself with me, just me, to 300, 400, 500,000, I can triple that by simply having an attorney on my staff and filling their plate. Now, here's the thing: is the dilemma is that most law firms, when they're fully maxed at a solo capacity, even with, oh, I hired help and whatever, when you're maxed out, you're still not at the place where you're like, oh, I can afford to pay somebody $10,000, $15,000 a month
Yep.
to bring an attorney on. So we're at this juncture where we don't feel like we're financially ready, but the answer to getting beyond yourself is to hire an attorney. And we try to think that we need more clients. We think if we spend more money on marketing, but it's not a marketing problem. It's a capacity problem in
Yep.
the firm. And we're building the business backwards. And I have this talk that I do where I talk about like how I would build a $1.5 million revenue firm in 12 months. And essentially what I map out is I would do it the other way around. I would first hire the attorney, have the capacity for them to serve. And the way I like to put this is I'm not an attorney, but in Arizona, I can start a law firm, right? Because there's a
Yep.
sandbox project there that they're testing, and basically a non-attorney can own a firm. I can go out into Arizona and I can start a law firm. Who would be the first person I hire? Because I'm not an attorney, it would be an attorney, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not a law firm. And
Yep.
that's how law firms need to look at themselves as like, okay, I need to bring on an attorney to give me the capacity. Then I need to fill the capacity. That could be with marketing spend. It could be with boots on the ground, doing sales. But if you stop doing the legal work, you've already figured out how to market and sell because you've filled your plate. You've got yourself to 250, 300, 400, 500,000. All you got to do is just spend all your time doing that and none of your time doing the legal work,
Yeah.
and have an attorney on your staff do it. And voila, you're there. So the
Yeah.
gap, what we find is the gap is getting somebody to be willing to hire an attorney at that stage.
Yep. So, okay. So first off, there's zero that I disagree with in what you just said. I have zero pushback. And so listen, we've got 25, 26 people on our team. When my partner and I started this agency, it was just the two of us. And I vividly, vividly remember, I would still say among the very most terrifying moments of building this business is making that first hire because of exactly what you said. We feel at capacity, so we feel like we have to hire, but at our current revenue levels, we can't afford to go pay somebody a full-time salary. And so it's a leap of faith, right? And I'm curious to hear you unpack, because I imagine you have this conversation over and over again. One of the pieces of advice that we got that has forever changed the way I think about hiring is don't think about their annual salary. Let's say you're hiring someone for $100,000. It feels like you're making a $100,000 commitment. You're really not. Like, just make sure that you can cover their salary for 60 to 90 days. And at that point, if you're not seeing a return, you can move on. You don't want to do that, but you can. And that little, I know that's simple. But that sort of mindset adjustment made it a lot more tolerable for us, because it's like, listen, we can test this out for 60 days. Hopefully it's going to free my capacity so I can get out and develop business. And turns out it did work out that way. But curious, what types of advice and how you think about that conversation, because I can promise you, Moshe, there are attorneys listening to this podcast right now who resonate with being at capacity, but are struggling with taking that leap of faith. So what's the conversation you have?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I will tell you, just from working with hundreds of law firms, the biggest mistake you can make when hiring your first attorney is to go cheap and hire a baby attorney. Because here's the thing, like, let's just think about this for a second. You are at capacity. You don't have room to take on a project. You need somebody to hit the ground running and start working files, right? So if you bring on somebody with experience who can actually start taking over work immediately, you're talking about a transition period of probably 6 weeks. You said 60 to 90 days. Let's use that, right? You've got 60 to 90 days to get them to take your entire workload off of your plate and start to actually produce $10,000 a month more than what you were producing before, which is not a big leap, right? Because they should be at a 1/3 capacity when they have your full workload, which means that there's plenty of room on their plate. And if I'm focusing now, I've transitioned them to that work. I'm focusing on getting clients. I should be able to get one or two more clients to make that happen, right? I imagine that in the typical firm, a client's value is probably in the $4,000 or $5,000 range at a minimum, and therefore 10 grand that's two clients, right? Like, that's it. So, the first thing is don't look at this as, oh, I'm hiring a baby attorney, because that's going to be an 18-month project, and that you're going to have to carry a salary for that long, and you don't have the time to train them properly. So you think, oh, and this is the thought process which boggles my mind. Like, I need somebody who I can teach my way, because my way is the only way to practice law, right? And I need to teach somebody my way. They shouldn't come with any bad habits, and they should do things the way I want them done. However, you're never going to teach them your way. You're just going to frustrate the heck out of them. You're going to get frustrated because things are moving too slow, and ultimately they're going to go and find another firm. You're going to lose them, and you're going to have to start over again. What needs to happen is we need to bring on somebody with experience, understand that there are attorneys out there who can do it as good or better than we can, and be willing to take the leap of faith to allow them to handle your clients. And you can oversee it. You can still be a sounding board for them. In my firm, I still provide guidance on the tax side for our clients, right? Like, I'm not handling the day-to-day minutia of every tax client, but I'm meeting with our accountants and I'm saying, hey, we have this client who they've got $500,000 in profit. We got to get them down under the QBI threshold. We got to get them down to 460. Like, here's where we can get 40,000 off the board, or even worse, we got $1 million. We got to get 600,000 off the board. Here's how we can do that, right? And I'm just helping drive the strategy. You can still drive the legal strategy, but bring somebody experienced in so that they can hit the ground running. The second piece of the puzzle, and you're absolutely right? That breakdown, don't look at the annual. The annual it's a facade. The reality is that we need to look at, what's the longest period of time I'll have to carry this experienced attorney until they're cash flowing? And 60 90 days is generous. It should be 6 weeks, right? Like if it's the right person, it should take 6 weeks for them to get to the point where you're actually able to sell more and cover their salary. But let's make it 90 days, make it 120 days. Say, what if they get hit by a bus 3 months into the project? I need to hire somebody for 3 months. Give yourself 6 months. If I had to carry a salary for 6 months, what would that be? If it's 15,000 a month, that's 90 grand. Now, most people listening to this podcast who are in that three, four, $500,000 revenue range don't have $90,000 laying around, right? However, and let's add another component to this. Let's say that you actually need to spend money on marketing. And this is a whole nother conversation we can segue into in a moment, but I just want to make the case here. Let's just say 10% of your revenue or 15% of your revenue needs to be spent on marketing in order for, at big picture, long term, in order for you to get to your goals. And your goal now is 3 times 500. So your goal is 1.5 million. So your marketing budget for 1.5 million should be somewhere between 150 and $225,000. Now break that down into monthly. We're talking about somewhere between 12 and $20,000 a month. So now we've added. So let's just take 15 as the number. So we have 15 for marketing, 15 for your attorney.
Sure.
That's 30, 6 months, 180,000. If I had $180,000 in the bank, that would remove any trepidation from making these moves. So what's holding you back? We're in the United States of America with the best banking system in the world. You can get an SBA Express loan for $150,000 in 3 weeks. Right? So we don't think in terms of that. Like we don't think in terms of like, okay, I have a relationship with a bank that I'm putting $500,000 a year through. They could probably give me a line of credit for 100 grand. Right?
That's a great point.
And what we do with our clients is we help them navigate the financial system so that we can put the runway in place for them to be able to get out of their own way and make that happen. Whether it's a loan, whether it's line of credit, whether it's some 0% credit cards, whatever it is, like line up the capital you need so that you can embark on this journey, not worrying about how you're going to feed your family. The moment we take that off the table, you're now free to hit the ground running, and it doesn't take 6 months. We're always getting more capital than we need, but it is buying you time. It's buying you time to get it right. It's buying you time to figure it out. And none of this stuff happens linearly in the same, like we're not spending 15,000 a month in marketing and on our people at the same time as that new investment. Yeah. It's going to take you 3 months to find an attorney, right? At least. So you're not paying for them at that time. And then it's going to take you another 6 weeks, 8 weeks to onboard them, get them to the place where they're cash flowing. While that's happening, you're starting to ramp up your ad spend or your marketing or whatever the plan is. You're starting to ramp up that spend so that you could fill their plate. You're not doing it simultaneously. So you don't even need this money at the same time, which ends up meaning that even though I made a case for 180, you probably only need 50 in the bank to really get this going. But people are funny. Like they need to feel safe in this process. And what's the other thing is like a lot of people give me pushback. They're like, "Oh, that's too risky for me. I can't borrow that much money." Right? I'm not a risk taker. If you're a business owner, you're a risk taker, right? Like you gave up a paycheck to create your own paycheck, right? Like owning a business is the biggest, riskiest proposition in the world. What is it? Like 9 out of every 10 businesses fail in the first 2 years.
Yep.
Right. So you entered into something where you had a 10% chance of success. And now I'm giving you something where you have like a 95% chance of success and you're afraid to do it. Right. So that's basically what with our clients, what we do to kind of walk them through that process.
Yeah.
And the other pieces is we help them to create a business plan, including their future financial statements, so they could see what it will look like when they're at the destination.
Oh, I like that.
Because I think having it written on paper, and I have this mantra, if it doesn't work on paper, it doesn't work in real life, right? But as business owners, we always fly by the seat of our pants, right? And what is a good idea today, tomorrow I'm in the shower, I think of a new good idea, and boom, we abandon that one, we're on to the next one, right? if you have a plan and you're executing the plan, it's a lot easier to stick to it and stay with it. But also, when you see what's possible, you suddenly realize what you're leaving on the table by not executing. And when you realize that you could you could be at 1 to 1.5 million in revenue in 12 months at a 30-40% profit margin. So you could be you're right now at 500,000 in revenue, and in 12 months you could be at 500,000 in profit. Just wrap your head around that for a moment. Now at 500,000, you feel good, right? Okay, I'm making 200,000 or 250, right? Like I feel like I've accomplished something. I feel like I'm doing better than I had on a paycheck. But when you see how easy it can be to get to the next level and how much that unlocks for you, in our elite coaching program, our guarantee is double your personal income in 12 months, or we work for free until you do. And the reason we have that guarantee is because I know the math. I know what happens. I know that if you follow our approach and you take those steps, you're going to triple your revenue, and you have to be able to double your personal income just mathematically.
That's awesome. All right, Moshe, this has been great. I feel like there's a ton of practical takeaways here for the small law firm owner who is, at that capacity point, maybe needs a little pushing to take that step and hire that first attorney. So that's awesome. I really agree with, and the point of, don't hire a baby attorney, right? Do hire somebody that, we experience it in the marketing world too, right? It's like, I don't want to hire somebody that I then have to babysit, because then it frees very little of my time. So awesome stuff. Really appreciate it. For the listeners who want to learn more about you guys, whether it's the financial advisory side or the coaching side, what is the best way for them to follow you, get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So obviously, all the free stuff out there. Profit with Law. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got a podcast, a website, all that stuff. Profitwithlaw.com. Just search Profit with Law on YouTube, or if you go to our website, we have links to YouTube podcast. We produce a new episode every single week. We produce new content on YouTube channel daily. So a ton of stuff there for you to just consume and be able to help you. But if you want to work with us in a more structured approach or explore that option, one thing that we offer is an absolutely free strategy session with somebody on our team. And what we do on that session is very simple. We help you to get extreme clarity around what you want to create in the next 12 months. We help you get extreme clarity around what's holding you back from doing that and how you can overcome that. And if the next steps of that includes working with us, great. But if it doesn't, you walk away having an immense amount of clarity around what you need to do in order to execute and create your future. So extremely valuable, whether or not you take that next step in working with me. And you can get that at profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. So if you're interested, book a time and work with one of my team members, and you'll really appreciate that call.
Awesome. Moshe, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And folks, this is a podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and you get notified every time they release a new episode.
Look at that, doing my job for me. I love it. All right, thanks, Moshe. Have a great one.
Take care.